Sports betting is becoming part of how Gen Z handles money, and it's happening at scale. About a third of Canadians aged 18 to 29 are now betting online, turning sports wagering into mainstream money behavior. Joining us to unpack this trend that's shaping young Canadians is Frech La Rosa, senior behavioral researcher at the Center for Advanced Hindsight at Duke University. It's good to have you join us. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Happy to be here.
So this is a really interesting conversation. I mean, what is it about this moment in culture that makes sports betting feel so normal for so many people?
It's a very, very important situation and something that at the center we've started to explore and try to dig deeper over the past few years. And the thing that's happening is that we do see this trend that more young adults, Gen Zers in particularly, are spending more money and spending more time with sports betting and gambling. And most of this is a response to a phenomenon called gamblification. And it's essentially what's happening is that the lines between investing and sports betting and gambling have become more blurred, in a sense where platforms and apps and the environments where people are making these betting and gambling decisions have become much more similar to each other. Now, when we think about trading and investing and gambling, we see that both are starting to leverage delivering excitement to young adults, creating these learning patterns where people reinforce placing bets, gambling, and seeking those large games, and creating uncertain outcomes that drive people to seek that as an opportunity. And we see, particularly for Gen Zers, where we see it's like there's a strong motivation to find that way to manage the cost of living, that way to manage and access more opportunities, but at the same time relying on an illusion of control that gambling and betting is leveraging for them, but it's not actually real, and it's starting to sort of like show negative outcomes for their finances in the long run.
Hans, I want to ask a question. I got a son, his name's Tanner, and he likes to invest, but he also likes to bet. He's betting on everything. He's betting on the tip of the ball and all these things that I had no idea. And I was taught under the school that, you go into a casino, you're going to lose, but he tells me he wins all the time. Are these kids winning? Are you able to, if you're good at this, to turn it into something kind of like investing?
The challenge is that some are, and those who are visible figures in the space. Like when we think about why we do the things we do and why people engage in different threads, it's all about social proof. It's all about what we see other people doing, who are the voices we're following, and who are sort of like the things we're seeing on different social media threads and so on. And so there's some people who are winning for sure, but that's not going to be the rule for most people, right? And if we just focus on those who are winning, then the challenge is, will other people follow that and then make mistakes in the process? And again, when we think about investing and building wealth, what we're focusing is we really need time is our best friend when thinking about building wealth. It's just like slow putting our money into different specific funds and places where we can see it growth. But young people are looking for that sort of like for that sort of like excitement in the moment, very short term, very, very quickly. And some people will win. And that uncertainty, that possibility of winning is what keeps driving motivation and excitement for people to continue doing that.
I guess that's why you call it betting. I mean, it sounds as though you're kind of erring on the side of caution in terms of how people should be approaching sports betting, right? Like, should younger people be looking at it as more as a form of entertainment rather than actually a way to make money?
Exactly. And when we think about what are some of the solutions, what are some of the things we can do to put in place to support young people, to support our community when engaging in gambling and sports betting in general, we're thinking about how can we add more individual galleries to that. So if we think about it as an entertainment, then we can set up a set budget, for example, the similar way how we have a budget for how much we want to spend eating out. Can we set up a budget for how much money we want to spend every month on betting and gambling? If we win, amazing, that's great. Those wins sort of like we can use them for some other goal that we have, for a trip, for buying a house, things like that. But the challenge becomes when people start losing and we start chasing those losses and we go beyond the amount of money we had allocated and we decided to have just for that particular activity. That's when we see people entering those cycles where it'll be harder to get out.
Hans, at the end of the day, is it really just like a casino? Is it really something akin to, a blackjack table where you're going to win maybe, 45% of the time and you're going to lose 55% of the time? Is that what it's really like, or is there more skill and talent involved, in your opinion?
Yeah, that's a very good question. In the end, chances are, what we've seen is that chances are closer to a casino than to a skill-based game. There is some skill involved, for sure. The challenge is that the skill and the people who win, when we look at some of the data, the people who are skilled and who tend to win more often, it's a very small majority. So we see very few people winning a lot of time, but most people in general losing most of the time they're placing bets and spending time on sports betting. No, so there might be some skill involved, but it's not something that's going to become common for most people. And the challenge there is if we just look at those particular individuals who are winning, who are very visible, then that might create an illusion that we have more control and more skill involved than what we actually have.
I wonder too, like we're getting into such an era of sports betting, right? Like you can't watch sports without getting bombarded with ads about different sports betting companies. Is this just a phase, do you think? Or is this the way that, this generation is going to try, I take your point, maybe they shouldn't, but is going to try to be making some of their money through sports betting?
That's something that I think we'll have to see. But what I can say to that is it is by design that both betting and to some extent day trading as well are using similar tools to create that day constant attention-seeking engagement from people in general. When we think about how betting, like how one of these platforms work, is we have ads, cues, notifications, things that are calling our attention all the time. All of that then triggers a particular behavior. This is what we call a habit loop. They trigger a particular behavior, which is they make it very easy for people to just, with a swipe, with a tap, place a particular bet. And then we have the reward element. We're celebrating some of the victories. We are helping people chase those losses when they don't by giving them a second opportunity or giving them a particular bonus. And we want to keep reinforcing that, or platforms want to keep reinforcing that particular loop. So the way platforms have been designed, they're going for that particular constant interaction. Now, I think the question and some of the things we need to keep an eye on is if this doesn't really become, and I think there's more risks than benefits at the moment, but if it doesn't become really a vehicle for people to build wealth, like we're missing the cost of opportunity of how much people could have built in terms of longer and more secure investments if they had spent that same money somewhere else than on gambling. No? So I think it's very important to see where's that line and help and steer people to treat this more as an entertainment and less as a vehicle for building wealth in the long term.
Okay, such a good conversation. Hans, appreciate you joining us this morning. Thanks so much.
Thank you both. Have a good day.
You too. That's Frech La Rosa, Senior Behavioral Researcher at the Center for Advanced Hindsight at Duke University.